Okay, so this amplifier is one of my custom jobs. Probably one of my favorite amps, and it's an amp I've always wanted. It's called Mr. Big. It's a nice, beautiful 85 watt circuit driving 4 10-inch speakers. They're Alnico speakers, vintage style. And it's got 4 L6GCs providing the power. So anyway, this video is not about how awesome my amp is, although my amp is awesome. Absolutely love it. Let's zoom in on the control panel really quick and talk about one thing. Okay, so the amp is on volume level 1. That's all well and good. The camera likes that. Let's try volume level 2. I'm gonna bet that the camera hated that. The volume from 1 to 2, the increase is incredible. And if we try to go to 3, this will definitely knock the camera out of its boots. And it's definitely got the reverb going too. But effectively, this volume goes up to 10. Up to 10! And the thing is well at stage volume by 3, and I don't think I've ever played this thing beyond 4 for fear of blowing something up or setting the house on fire. Of course, facetiously, but at least getting the cops called on me. So this is a very gainy circuit, and maybe we want to mellow this amp out. Let's say that I built a Mr. Big amplifier like this for a jazz musician. I do know some of them around here, and they're nice guys, but this has a beautiful warm sound. It would work great for a jazz musician, but that's probably too much gain. It's not quite as controllable as they might want it to be. So let's talk about calming it down. Speaking of amps that needed calmed down, sitting over here in the corner in the dark, that's an Epiphone Blues Custom. Those puppies come from the factory way too hot. That clean channel is so loud. So we're going to talk about how to fix it. A total rookie can fix it, and it doesn't really take any kind of mad technical skills. Alright, we'll see you at the computer in a minute. Okay, let's play computer for a minute. There's a thing referred to as the MU. It's a number associated with the gain of a tube. You're putting a guitar signal in, which is a very weak signal, and the tube's job is to make that signal louder. A 12AX7, which is probably the tube that is in direct contact with your guitar, well, almost direct contact. So the first tube your guitar signal goes into is very, very likely a 12AX7. In almost every amp, with a few exceptions. If you're using a vintage Gibson, maybe you have a 6EU7 or a 6SL7 or something like that. But that's very, very rare. Almost all current productions, your first tube is a 12AX7. And that has a gain factor of 100. That's very, very hot. They put in guitar level voltage and got 13.52 volts out, for a total of 22 watts at the end of the amp. I don't know what amp they were testing with. I didn't actually look into this grave detail. I'll have to figure that out. The next tube on the list is a 5751. 5751 will easily substitute for 12AX7. This is a military number. But this tube only has a gain of 70. A little less than the gain of 100. So instead of 13.5, they got 13.1. Calms it down just a little bit. Most of your amps with multiple tubes will have, you know, a gain stage 1, gain stage 2, so you might have two 12AX7s, making the amp rowdier. And you can try exchanging one or both for a 5751. Some of these older 5751s, military surplus, are USA made tubes, and they sound great. The next possible substitution is a 12AT7. This is commonly seen in reverb circuits because it can drive transformers. That's why we see them in reverb circuits. They're also commonly used as phase inverters. They're a nice tube. They're not quite a dead-on substitution for a 12AX7, but they tend to work very well. Next one is the 12AY7. And the 12AY7 has a gain of only 45, so about half of a 12AX7. So right now, if your amp is louder than you can tolerate at 4, and you were to switch that first tube out for a 12AY7, you might be able to get that amp to 6, 7, 8 before it got as loud as it did at 4. And the 12AY7s were commonly used in bass amps to avoid harsh distortion. And the lowest gain is the 12AU7. These are generally used in hi-fis, things like that. 12AU7 probably does not have enough gain. But let's take a look at the voltage here. With the 12AX7, they were observing a voltage of 13.5. With 5751, they were seeing 13.1, so it took the edge off. 12AT7, 7.4, so not quite half, and the 12AY7, 5.3, so about half. 12AU7, 1.36. If you want to take any loud screaming amp and turn it into a bedroom player, you could take your 100-watt Marshall and load those 12AX7s with 12AU7s and you'd have a bedroom amp. I don't know if we want to do that. So how do we determine which tube sees the sound first? Well, let's look at a common one that we always end up working on. See if we can get a big shot of that picture. There we go. This is a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe, and our power tubes are those two. They're 6L6s. And over here, hiding in the foam, the stupid foam, I think that's for vibration, why they put that there. I wonder if it overheats the tube. I always wondered that. But anyway, your valve number 1, V1, your first gain stage, is this tube on the, well, when you're looking at it, would be on the right side. On most Fender amps, your primary gain tube is always on the far right side. To my knowledge, I haven't seen too many Fender amps that were any different. You can pull a tube chart off the internet for just about any amp you can think of. And then your second stage is also a 12AX7. These amps are notoriously very, very gainy amps. Kind of probably why they call them hot rods. But if you swap these 12AX7s for something like a 5751 or a 12AY7 or 12AV7, something like that, calm them down a lot, and you can turn a screaming stage amp into a more comfortable, balanced amp. I believe this one's the reverb driver tube. I'd have to pull the chart on that one to be sure. This is a Ted Weber diagram of their 6A80. This is kind of like a Fender Twin. So this is a 2-channel amp. You have the quote-unquote vibrato channel, which actually has a tremolo in it, not a vibrato. And then you have the normal channel. We follow the wires down. We go right from the input jack into this tube right here. The far right tube. We get the back of the amp. And if you follow the channel here, the tremolo channel, it starts and goes straight into this tube right here. So this is valve number 1 for the normal channel, and this is valve number 1 for the vibrato channel. There you go. So if you were to change these out for a 5751 or a 12AY7, you could calm your amp down a whole lot. Just makes it a lot easier to calm down an amp that's just too crazy loud. The Epiphone Blues Custom I was alluding to a little bit earlier, even on the clean channel, when you turn the volume up past 5 or 6%, the amp was already screaming. They put very high gain, grainy sounding China tubes in them. I'm sure it was probably just because they were affordable, but at the same time, that amplifier was unmanageable, because if you would touch the volume while trying to play a gig, it would just go from a whisper to a roar in no time at all. By putting two 5751s in it, in the first and second gain stage, because after it goes through all this stuff, it comes over here for some additional gain after it goes through the tone control. Change those out, you get less gain, and you go from a screaming amp to a mellow amp. Here's just a quick chart with the gain factor. 12AX7s. MU of 100. 5751. A gain of 70. This is, I would rather, this is personal preference. I prefer to change two tubes to 5751 than I would to change one tube to 12AY7 or 12AT7, but it's all about personal preference. Whatever works for you. You're free to swap these tubes amongst themselves. They are all compatible in that 12AX7 socket. There's our gain graph again. And as far as the tubes availability, 5751. Current production, JJ makes one. This is retail price. You can just go to Amplified Parts and buy them. About $13. About the same price as a 12AX7 roughly. The Sobtech version is a little more expensive at $15. New old stock ones were going for $25, but it looks like they're out. And then the tongue saw, which is a premium, was $22.21. And Tube Amp Doctor apparently makes one too for $17. So there you go. And there are some amps apparently. This one, Tube Amp set for Carol Ann OD3R. Apparently this amplifier had 5751s in it. Stock. Not familiar with that amp, but hey, 5751's a nice, a little bit more mellow gain. And as far as 12AY7s, those are still in production too. 12AT7's around, and they're like litter, but they, you know, you can get tons of different manufacturers for those. But again, just because of the way that they're sort of a current heavy tube, and they're just a little bit too different for me to want to use them as a substitution. It's okay to do it, you're not going to blow anything up. I'm just spouting personal opinions. 12AY7 Electro Harmonics, very good tube, $14. The Groove tube, which I'm assuming is probably, I don't know, maybe a Chinese one, $21. But their explanation of the 12AY7, this tube is closest in specification to a 12AX7 and can be exchanged with a slight drop in gain. Most companies changed over to the 12AX7 as it became more common. This tube can be tried in later Marshall amplifiers in the first gain position, where the owner of the amps would like to drop the background noise and lower the gain level to plexi or early 70s vintage gain levels with its returned wider frequency response. So effectively, you're taking an amp and making it more mellow. JJ makes one of these for $12.41. And Tube Amp Doctor probably has some rebranded Chinese tubes for 17 and 20 something. Anyway, there you go. If you have an amp that is too honkin' loud, there is an easy way that you, as a not technician, can easily calm that amp down. Just swap out your 12AX7 for something with lower gain, whether it be a 5751 or a 12AY7. And that will give you more control of your volume knob. There's going to be a theoretical maximum of what your amp can put out anyway. It's probably going to saturate its transformer, and you're just going to end up in distortion And at some point, you can keep turning the volume up and the tone doesn't really change much and the volume doesn't change much. And if you're not turning the amp up to 10 to get the sound you want, I don't see how it's going to hurt your tone overall to try a slightly lower gain tube. If you're not getting all the way up to 10 to make you happy, you know, maybe you'll get closer to 10 to make you happy this time. You know, we all want our amp to go to 11 anyway, right? So anyway, so I don't ramble anymore. Loud amps, calm them down. Just swap your 12AX7 for something simpler. This is not rocket surgery. This is just simple electronics. Thanks for watching and have a great day.